Hi, I'm Andrew Estrada, and today I'm going to be talking about how to play the Pokemon trading card game. The Pokemon trading card game started on December 18th, 1999, and started with the first edition sets. It then moved on to the Jungle sets and the Rocket set. 74 sets later, it's a worldwide trading card game that many people can enjoy and love, and people can compete in them to tournaments, where they can all meet together and play the Pokemon World Championship Tournament and compete for over $500,000 in grand prizes. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Next slide, please. What's on a Pokemon card? Well, first let's start with the basic Pokemon, Stage 1 Pokemon, and Stage 2 Pokemon. Basic Pokemon means that you must place that Pokemon down first. So say, for example, you have Charizard, a card that you want to use. You must first place down a Charmander, and wait one turn, place down a Charmeleon, wait another turn, and place down a Charizard. You must have all three of them to be able to play him. Next, we're going to talk about this symbol right here. That symbol is how many hit points a Pokemon has. So Charmander is 50, Charmeleon is 80, and Charizard is 150 hit points. Now, these hit points are what you call health. After a certain number of hits or attacks from opposing Pokemon, this Pokemon will be declared fainted and will not be able to play anymore, and you'll have to discard the Pokemon. Now let's talk about attacks. Attacks are, as you can see here, what a Pokemon will primarily be doing. They deal damage onto the opposing Pokemon and knock them out, which is the priority of the game. Now, if you see here, you see the name and a number next to it. The number is how much damage an attack will do. This symbol right here is an energy, and it is what is required to use the attack. Now, some moves have a description on them, and that is what it will say if it does anything more than just the damage listed. So, for example, Charmander says, discard one Fire-type energy card attached to this Charmander in order to use this attack. Now, normally, when you use energy cards attached to Pokemon, you have 2 turns before you have to discard the energy. But for him, once you use the Ember move, you must discard the energy immediately. Let's talk about retreat cost. Retreat cost is something you'll see in the bottom right corner that requires energy. Now, a retreat cost is what you will use to take your Pokemon in play, out of play, and onto your bench. Weakness and resistance, as you see here, is what the Pokemon is weak to. So say this energy type is on a Pokemon card up here. That Pokemon card will do double damage to the Pokemon that has the weakness of that type. So say you have a water type Pokemon that has an attack that does 50 damage. Well, to him, it will do 100 damage because it does double the damage. Now, resistance, as you can see here, is a type that Pokemon is resistant to. If this symbol is up here, that means for this Pokemon card that any damage done will be minus 20. So say this Pokemon has a move that does 80 damage, to this Pokemon it will only do 60 damage. The picture on the card is, of course, the Pokemon that you have, and the ability. Now, ability is a special move that only some Pokemon have, and it does not do any damage to any of the Pokemon. It only helps you and your Pokemon. Now, his ability is all energy attached to this Pokemon are Fire-type energy instead of their usual type. Now, as you see, there are different types of energy here. If you placed one of those energies down, they would count as a Fire-type energy, so it would be easier for him to use Fire Spin. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about setting up. You must have 60 cards in a deck, and that deck is what you'll be using to play. Any cards that you use and then are done with will be moved to the discard pile, which is right beneath the deck. Energies. No, let's talk about prize cards first. Prize cards are 6 cards that you'll be placing down at the beginning of the game to the left-hand side of your table. The bench is where you will place any Pokemon that are not currently in play. Now, say you have a hand and that you pull out a hand of 3 basic Pokemon. All 3 of these Pokemon must go down. 1 must be active, and 2 must be on the bench. Once your bench is filled with a maximum of 5 Pokemon, that is when you can start holding basic Pokemon in your hand. Now, your hand is where you're going to hold any cards that you want the opponent to see. Energies that you haven't attached yet, trainer cards that you haven't used yet, or Pokemon that you haven't placed down yet, or evolutions of the Pokemon that you have in play. Energies are what you'll be attaching to your Pokemon so that they can use their attack. And trainer cards, support cards, and stadium cards are cards that will help you strategize throughout the game. Next slide, please. Now, more into energies. There are 9 types of energies, and this is a special energy card that you only see in one situation. Now, these energies are all specific to their Pokemon. So this Pokemon needs 3 of these type energies to use this move. Now, why I said this move, this energy is special, is because this energy right here is the only way it'll work. So say that you have that this Pokemon wants to use this move. It requires 2 of these energies and 1 of this little star energy, right? This star energy can count for any of the energies you want. So say you only have 2 fighting types and a water type energy in your hand. You can place those 2 down and it will count for the colorless type energy. But this card is the only one you can use where it will count as 2 colorless energy. It will count as 2 energies in 1 card. Now when you start out the game, you're going to draw 13 cards. 7 will be in your hand and 6 will go to your prize card immediately. You do not look at your prize cards while you're placing them down. After that, you place down all basic Pokemon. And then you can evolve them after 1 turn of them being down and active. Now the importance of energies is that they must be used in any game. So make sure that you have plenty of energies in your deck. Now these 2 cards, I'm sure, look different than any typical cards that you've seen so far. They are GX and EX Pokemon. EX Pokemon and GX Pokemon are special because when you feint an EX or GX Pokemon, you must take 2 prize cards instead of 1 when you normally feint a Pokemon. Also, what's special about these Pokemon is that EX Pokemon will always be basic. So say that Charizard I was talking about earlier is Charizard EX. His label will say basic and you can place him down immediately without having to evolve him. GX Pokemon are special because they have a GX move, which can only be used once per game. Now say you have 4 GX Pokemon. Can you use all 4 of their GX Pokemon moves? No. You can only use 1 of your GX Pokemon cards' GX move per game. That's it. Next slide, please. Now, trainer cards come in 3 different types. I'm sure I've talked about this earlier. Supporter, item, and stadium. Now, supporter cards are cards that will help you as a player. Supporter cards, this card says, switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon. So, say you have 1 prize card left, and they have a strong Pokemon out, but they have a weak basic Pokemon on their bench. You can place down this card, switch the Pokemon, and feint the Pokemon and win the game. We'll talk more about that later. Item cards are cards that will help you and your Pokemon. Now this item card says, switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. So say you have a weak Pokemon out and they have a strong Pokemon out, but you have a strong Pokemon on your bench. You use this card, place it down, switch the Pokemon, then move this card to your discard pile. This item card says, Pokemon this card is attached to has no retreat cost. There are some trainer cards that you can attach to your Pokemon, and it will stay with them for as long as the game goes on, or until they're fainted. That means that little retreat cost I was talking about earlier will be not there. You can just switch them with any Pokemon you want. Now, stadium cards are special because they affect all of the Pokemon in play, the active Pokemon and the benched Pokemon. This says that each Pokemon that has any fairy type energy attached to it, both yours and your opponent's, has no retreat cost. So if I go back 1 slide and see this energy type, my Pokemon, if I have any energy type, if I have that energy type attached to any Pokemon, that Pokemon now has no retreat cost. This Pokemon has 2 energy retreat cost, would be gone. You can just switch it whenever you want. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Winning. Let's move on to how to win. First, there are deck cards. Now, I mentioned earlier that you have 60 cards in your Pokemon deck. Well, if you can wait out your opponent, and he runs out of all of his 60 cards, they're all in his discard pile, and he uses all the cards in his hand, he's lost and you've won the game. The second way, and most popular way, is prize cards. When you feint a Pokemon, you take 1 prize card, and at the beginning of the game, you place down 6. If you can take away all of your prize cards, then you have won the game. If you feint, that's why GX and EX Pokemon are so special. Because if you faint 3 GX Pokemon, that's game over. Whereas if you would faint 6 regular Pokemon, that would be game over. And in most competitive play, GX and EX Pokemon are the main Pokemon used. Then 3, fainting Pokemon. Now, if you have, in the beginning of the game, 3 basic Pokemon that you've drawn out, and you have 1 in play, and you evolve it to a strong Pokemon, and the opponent only has 1 Pokemon in play, and none in their hand or on the bench. If you faint that Pokemon before he can get any more basic Pokemon in his hand or on the bench, you've won the game. He's run out of Pokemon to use and lay down. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Now the card type. For 2018 regulations, the only 2 available card types used are Pokemon X and Y and Pokemon Sun and Moon. Now, of course, it's not just X and Y and Sun and Moon. There are different sets of X and Y and Sun and Moon. There's X and Y evolutions. There's Sun and Moon Burning Shadows. There are different types of Sun and Moon and X and Y booster packs. Next slide, please. I want to summarize this by saying today you should have learned how to play, what's on a Pokemon card, how to win, and what cards should be used. This Pokemon game can be a little complicated at times, but you should make sure to keep it simple for yourself and have fun. And thank you for being with me.